Okay, the weekend is here, which means another episode of the Beeline podcast. Joe Barone,
Chris Burrow.
could you say that any less enthused? I mean, really, man.
Been a rough week, Joe. It's been a rough week.
Rough week. All right, well, the weekend is here, so we are ready to go. And we're pumped because, at least I am. I don't know about him, but I'm pumped. And I think last week, I thought that show was great with Chris Canis. You know, he brought some good perspective in there from the PR side of things and sports in general. And I think this week we have a guest. But before you introduce him, I got to say, I have a couple of surprises.
Ooh.
Yeah, a couple surprises on the show today. They're to my right now, and which might be the left, the opposite. But I'm pumped because I know they represent the teams that our guest roots for and you root for, and I want to get your opinion on it. So without further ado, how about you introduce him this time around?
All right. Before I introduce this kid, I just want to say he's very delusional when it comes to his sports teams.
Oh, great. So I'm glad you invited him.
So we'll see what happens. He worked in the sports field for a little bit doing production with a gambling show. So it should be interesting. His name's Nick Ladzinski. How about we bring him in?
What's up, man?
How are you, dude?
What's going on?
All right.
He's like you. He's bringing zero energy to the show, which is not good. Not a good start, Nick.
I've been prepping, man.
You've been prepping? Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't worry.
In the introduction, I kind of talked about you doing a gambling show. So how about you explain to everybody what you actually did?
So what I did was basically I worked with the video production side of things. I cut highlights. I looked at the callers comments to call in. I gave the producers their numbers. They called in. They gave their input. We looked at the databases of gambling and what could have been the best picks for those nights. The analysts basically dug deep and they picked as to why they wanted to do those games. They wanted to get on those boards. They basically sat there and they bet every possible game they could get. They bet D3 college basketball games if they were on the board. So they were betting all over the place whenever they could. We had a studio up in the FanDuel Sportsbook at the Meadowlands, and then our main studio was up in New York, right next to Madison Square Garden. So they were affiliated with MSG as well. Actually, their football is on TV in the mornings. On Sunday mornings on MSG2, channel 72 with Optimum. So they're all over the place. They're building with their sports gambling network. They have connections with Vegas. So it was kind of cool to get involved with that, especially with the sports betting.
Now, I just want to ask you something. Obviously, you didn't take any tips from them because you bet Rutgers every week,
Can't bet Rutgers. You can't bet New Jersey State schools.
Oh, my bad.
I will disclose you guys are both from New Jersey, so it's technically legal for you guys. Not legal for me as a New York resident. But, Nick, were you like a big gambler at all? Sports? Do you enjoy sports gambling a little bit?
Yeah, I do now. I try to get in the college football action in the NFL. NBA, I really haven't touched, really. I probably will touch this year. MLB, I try to stick with for the overs a little bit. Hockey, overs a little bit, but
Hockey's
nothing
tough.
too – yeah, hockey is tough. Hockey was the toughest because when you hit the overs on the goals, you're like that's like winning the lottery basically because you don't know what you're going to get out of the hockey.
No, of course.
So especially with the baseball too, you could get a good pitching duel up. So you never know what could transpire out of those games. But I think the football and college football are the most entertaining ones to deal with.
So was it an internship or was this an actual job?
It was an internship at first, and then it turned into a full-time job for me. I worked the weekends, so I covered mainly the college football aspect of things. We had a show in the morning from 9 to 12, college game day morning. They just give their best bets throughout it all. They were live from the Meadowlands, the sports book, the FanDuel over there. And then we did in-game live. They just kept updating games and what could you jump on maybe in the in-game situation.
Right.
Now, did they give you any tips for somebody that wants to go into sports in the industry?
Yeah, they did. They just said be open-minded to new things. The sports industry is a tough field to work in. There's so many opportunities out there. So they just said take whatever you could get to learn, and you just move forward with it.
So your background is in what then from college?
I was a communications major. So I wanted to do.
So you're
do
just
the
as
sport.
big of a moron as me.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
I don't know. In all
Absolutely.
seriousness though, it was fun while in college, right? So
Oh yeah.
and then you go on to bigger and different things. So you went from a communications major in college, and you found this one. Did you want to be in front of the camera or in front of the speaker, like the microphone, or did you want to be behind the scenes like you were doing at this internship and full-time job?
So I knew it was going to be. I knew I wasn't going to get behind the microphone right away. That was going to take some time, and it was going to take a lot of practice. That was eventually going to be my goal. So I knew I needed to start somewhere, and I knew with the sports gambling network, I had that opportunity to work behind the scenes and see what kind of actions there were providing throughout the shows and stuff. Learn how maybe take some tips from how they talk about things and how they adapt to different situations during the games.
Gotcha.
It's very interesting because I know you used to talk to me about all this stuff, so I knew it was something that you were interested in, but let's try to move off the topic a little.
Different paths now.
Yeah, it's in the past, but you never know what can happen.
What was the name of the company?
It was the Sports Grid Network.
Okay.
They didn't have that was mainly their name, Sports Grid. So like I said, for anybody that's gambling or trying to get into the gambling scene, their shows are on Sunday and Saturday mornings on the MSG Plus. So they do all their live games, and then you guys want to check out their YouTube channel and FanDuel app. That's where they come from.
Yeah, Nick's advertising gambling, guys.
He's promoting it right now. This is not good. Before we go on, I have to ask: do you think, and this is going to be a big question now, do you think sports gambling should be legalized throughout the entire country? And what do you think are some of the benefits with that?
Yeah, I do believe it should be legalized throughout the country. I think first off, it teaches people lessons not to gamble. I think you find
if you have enough crappy bets, then you'll realize I shouldn't waste my money on this crap.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing, but I do believe that it should be legalized. I think it is entertaining. I think it's fun. When you're sitting around, you're bored maybe on a Saturday, especially in this time. Not a lot of people with jobs and trying to make ends meet in a little bit here, and then I think I think it could help a lot of people throughout the time.
So that's actually a funny point. There's no better way to save your money in the middle of a pandemic when people are out of jobs than to waste your money on terrible bets. Like my cousin right here, who you should see him on Sundays during the football season.
Listen,
Total degenerate.
You don't know how many times.
He doesn't know a thing about who to. Yeah, he's a lock. This team is a lock. Meanwhile, he goes 0 for 4 on a parlay. So I don't want to hear.
Listen, you don't know how many times me, Nick, and one of our other friends, Mike Farioli, if anybody wants to know, are at Tommy's Tavern and Tavern. Like, oh, this game looks good. Let's live bet it.
Oh, yeah, right.
And then we end up losing it.
A lot.
Yeah.
But
he loses every week.
Since we're talking about betting, we're going to shoot to the Knicks real quick because it's a lock. This is definitely a lock.
Find out his teams first.
All right, fine. What are your teams, Nick?
I'm a Knicks fan. I'm a Giants fan. I'm a Yankees fan. And then I am a Rangers fan. People question that, but I am a Ranger fan.
So let's start off with the Knicks because we're talking about sports gambling, and I really think this is a lock. So the Knicks are at 20 wins, the over and under set at. How do you feel about that?
I think they get the 25 wins this year. I think with the draft pick that they acquired, and I think with the new acquisitions that they all made and everything, I think Tom Thibodeau was a good coach. I think what he did in Chicago and what he did in Minnesota, taking them to the playoffs, I think for the first time in like 10 years, I think it was. He's a good coach, and I think he's going to adapt these players. He's going to make these players work. And I think Kevin Knox could really develop this year. If if they use him correctly, I think that was the biggest thing for all Knicks fans is Kevin Knox going to be a good and not a wasted first round pick. I think he could develop. I really do. I think a lot.
Chris, why are you giving the face? I thought Kevin Knox was a solid player in college.
My thing about Kevin Knox is the kid's young. He makes a lot of rookie mistakes, but he just looks ruined. He hangs out in the corner. It's like, dude, move. You got to move for the ball. But we're talking about key players. How do you feel about their offseason moves with Lawrence Noel, Austin Rivers, their draft pick, Obi Toppin?
Yeah, I like it. I think they're going to – it improves their win. I think Austin Rivers is a good player. Lawrence Noel was – a good player with Philly for the time he was there. It's hard to tell because you're only giving these players 1 year. And I think for Austin Rivers, you're giving him, what was his contract, 3 years? So yeah. So you're giving him some time to develop. You got to develop these players. And I think that's with every sport. You have to build them up from the ground. You can't just, say they're waste. Like Kevin Knox, I don't think he had the proper coaching. I think with Tom Thibodeau, you might give him the proper coaching, and you may never know what you get out of him. Look at Wayne Gallman for the Giants for some example. Everyone thought he was a boss. He was a wasted backup. He was never going to play under Pat Shermer. He was never going to play under Ben McAdoo when he was there when he got drafted. Those are all things. As a fan, you like to see. Look, he's putting up production now for the Giants to be winning. And I think you could get that out of Kevin Knox this year if, he has that proper coaching. It all comes down to the coaching.
Well, yeah.
So I see a lot of optimism. I hear a lot of optimism from our special guest here today. Chris, do you have that same optimism as well with the Knicks? Because me personally, I think they're going to be terrible this year, only because they're still in their rebuild, the quote-unquote rebuild. I think they have another couple of years because next year they should have a little bit more money. I think they should see who else is out there, see if there's a mega free agent out there. I'm not sure who the class is.
About the mega free agents, you're not going to get one of those. That was my hope with either getting Russell Westbrook or Chris Paul.
Well, you have to change the culture. You hear this word culture nonstop with the Jets, with the Mets, the Knicks. Notice how it's all the shitty teams in New York, how they're all trying to fix the culture of their organization. Do you think this hiring of this new coach is the culture change the Knicks need?
I think so, because I think he works – everybody brings up when he was with the Timberwolves, Karl-Anthony Towns hated him, which I think he works great with young players, and Karl-Anthony Towns just didn't like him because he pushes his young players. Yeah. He pushes their limits. So you know what? I don't know how to put this, because I am optimistic about the Knicks. But at the same time,
cautious. You're cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, it's because of James Dolan. That's what it is.
All right.
And you guys have to realize. Look at what Tom Thibodeau did with the Bulls back when Derrick Rose was drafted, Jimmy Butler. Look how good they came out to be, and look how many Eastern Conference Finals Tom Thibodeau. Even though the Miami Heat were that dynasty at that time, Tom Thibodeau really developed Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler. He had a solid team to work with. And I think if you could get that now, yes, the Knicks are going to be young. They missed out on a lot of free agents, and that's going to happen. You're going to miss out on free agents. But as a fan, I am very optimistic about this team this year. I think they could – and I think with the draft pick they drafted this year, I think he's going to bring Obi Toppin. I think he's going to bring a lot of juice and a lot of spark to this team, and because he's ready, he's coming here. He wants to win, and I think that draft pick was the best thing that could happen for them in a long time.
Well, Joe, you always talk about homegrown guys. This guy's from Brooklyn, so you know what? It might be a spark to him, saying I'm playing for my home team. He grew up a Knicks fan, even though the Nets are in Brooklyn now, but
the Nets weren't always in Brooklyn, of course.
But I'm saying, yeah.
No, you make a good point, and I love that stuff. I love that, kid from, the local area is coming up, and he's going to be hopefully a star for this organization. I have to ask, though, kind of throw a little bit of a wrench into things. Didn't in the offseason the basketball teams all around the league release new uniforms, new street uniforms, or all this kind of stuff? Are you a huge proponent of a new uniform every time it comes out, or do you think it's just a marketing ploy just for the extra bucks?
Nick, you go first.
I think it's just a marketing thing. I think it really is. Every year there,
Are you
even
on that
then,
line though? Are you on that line to purchase that new jersey?
no,
No, you're
no,
not. Oh, okay. All
no,
right. All
absolutely
right.
not. No, I think. Look, I think some jerseys are cool, but it's not needed. I think I think like a lot of the jerseys. I don't know what jersey was it that switched over the years, but that was just a marketing brand. I think a lot of those jerseys are just marketing brands. I think they're just trying to get that extra dollar so fans can go buy out those jerseys and stuff.
Well, what does your dad say all the time, Chris? Your dad says only the good teams never change their uniforms. They always
No, it's only the bad teams change their uniform. So
right,
yeah, it's in yeah.
which means only the good teams keep
Hey,
their
look at the Jets.
uniforms.
I
They
look at
switched
the
their
Jets. Look at the
Look at the
Yankees.
Jets.
Yankees winning dynasty. How many years have they had those pinstripes?
Well, this kind of goes into what my surprise was that I kind of previewed in the beginning. I actually have a jersey, which also leads to our next another team that I know you root for, the Rangers. They released a jersey, it was a couple weeks ago, called the Retro Reverse, and they brought back the Liberty jersey. Do you remember this jersey at all from the 90s and early
Yes.
2000s?
Yes.
What is your
Yes.
take on this jersey? And I would love to hear about it.
I wear those in NHL all the time, by the way. Just letting you know.
So
I
it's
am
a nice
not a
jersey,
I,
get the Liberty logo.
I am not a fan of those jerseys.
Really?
Yeah, I am not a fan of those jerseys. I like the classic normal red, white, and blue jersey. I think, to be honest with you, I think you got to get a jersey that represents your team. I think with these marketing, I think what the Rangers have, like with the classic red, white, and blue, I think that just represents the Rangers. I don't think it represents like those other. The other jersey I like for the Rangers is the Winter Classic one when they played in 2011 when they played against Philly. Those are the only other Rangers jerseys I like. The white ones are fine, just because it's normal. I don't like any of those other teams' jerseys, like the Browns when they switch theirs. Like, just stick to one basic jersey. You play one season. You
That's
don't
a
need to have.
very
You don't need to
consistent.
have different 50,000 jerseys.
You know what though? With that jersey, that's just a prime like symbol of New York, though. That's why I like it.
Yeah, I agree
'Cause,
with that. I agree.
yeah, it's the Statue of Liberty. Well, it is the Statue of Liberty, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So, like, I wear those all the time in NHL.
Well, we were talking about the Jets, about their jerseys when they made their switch. What was it last
Those
year?
are hideous. Those are hideous, Joe.
I
I'm
like
sorry.
I like the black ones and I like the all white ones.
Ew.
You know
The
what?
one I do not like.
You know what? Rutgers has those jerseys too, the black ones. I like the black ones from Rutgers. I don't like the red ones that they wear. It's just they're ugly.
Listen, like the
They're
whole
ugly.
uniform switching thing is you got to stick to what you're known for. The Jets are
Yeah.
known for white helmets, a green symbol on the helmet.
This is why I brought this out.
I love those. That's what I thought they were going to change too.
That's Mr. Joe Namath, the last great quarter. Actually, no, I'm not going to say that because the last great quarterback that we had was Mr. number 10, Chad Pennington.
Yeah, Chad Pennington got pins in his wrist.
Listen, he was a very good quarterback, and he would have won many, many times had he stayed healthy.
Or what about Nick Ladzinski's guy, Mark Sanchez, when he was rooting for the Jets and he came over to my house with a Mark Sanchez jersey on?
Chris, I was in like 6th grade, man. That doesn't count.
Can we confirm this? Were you actually a Jets fan at some point?
I was not a Jets fan. I got
Yeah.
one year.
Well, he was a Jets fan back in 2009, 2010 when they were going.
It was.
Yeah, right.
Listen. When the Jets were good, my uncle thought it was going to be funny to pull a prank. I asked for a Giants T-shirt, and he pulled it with a Mark Sanchez because he lives in South Philly. Or not South Philly. He lives near Philadelphia, and there's not a lot of Giants stuff down there because that's Eagles country. So they had a Mark Sanchez T-shirt. He grabbed it and he gave it to me for Christmas. And when the Jets were good, yeah, I did put it on. I'm not going to deny that. I had it on. Was I rooting for the Jets? Yes. I don't hate the Jets. I'm not a hatred of New York teams. Like, I want to see all the teams, even with the Mets. Like, I want to see them succeed. I know they went through, hell and back a few years, for a few years. So you want to see those teams succeed as a New Jersey person.
Oh, and that's really good for a second. I want to pause because there are some fans that think that if you are a Met fan, you have to hate the Yankees or vice versa. Or if you are a Jet fan, you have to hate the Giants and vice versa. I think that works for some fans. I get where you're coming from, where there are fans out there that they want to root for both, like they want to root for the benefit. They have one team, but they want to say, all right, I hope this other team does well. Like I do that with the Yankees because actually when I was little, I was a Yankee fan growing up, and then I made the dumb move to become a Mets fan, and that's here we are today.
Yeah.
Miserable. But my family were always Yankee fans, so I always had that soft spot for the Yankees. So I never really hated them. Their fans, though, on the other side, they're a little annoying. But that's the one thing. I think the fans and their passion for each other are the ones that cause the hatred and the vile towards the organization, because it's not that the players hate them. You don't care about the players. You just don't like the fans getting on ribbing you every time they beat somebody or you lose to somebody, and all that.
Because they try to make it like they're beating you physically. Like, number one, your team didn't beat mine. So, like, why are you in my face? But the Yankee fans are like that. The Giant fans are like that. That's why I hate both teams.
Well, it's all about the bragging rights of the city. The city can only be for one team. The Mets will always be the younger brother to the Yankees. The Jets will always be the younger brother to the Giants, regardless of the success. Even in 2009 and 10, when the Jets were better than the Giants and they were going to the AFC Championship game, they were always a little brother. When
they're a second-hand team, yeah.
Yeah, when the Mets were making the run in 2015 and 2016, they still were the younger brother of New York, and they always will be. That's just the way it is. The Knicks and Nets right now, okay? The Nets are going to dominate the league this year. They're going to be good next year and a couple of years in the future.
But it's a Knicks town.
Yes, this will always be a Knicks town, whether people like it or not. And I think even if the Nets do win a title within the next couple of years, that's just going to be the case. There's going to be more of a fanfare for the Knicks, less than the Nets.
Well, I know firsthand experience. Nick, you do too, by going to Knicks-Nets games. Back in the past, we were with a bunch of Knicks fans, and it's so much louder for the Knicks than the Nets. But it might change soon because you get some people that are going to jump onto the Nets bandwagon now. So
I do want to ask, though. So you are a Yankees fan, you say?
Yes.
Are you happy that they are kind of being smarter with their money than recent years?
Yes. This year, I mean, you really don't see – you haven't seen much out of the Yankees this year. I think they finally –
teams, though. It's quiet for all teams. There's not many going on yet.
Yeah, there's not a lot of moves yet. I think it's smart. I think the Yankees finally realized that it's going to take them look, where they were in 17, that was just a spark. They just hit something where they just went on that run and they went to Game 7 against Houston. 18, they lost. The problem was you can't have all these all-stars. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. When you sign all these all-stars to teams in any sport, it's never going to work. It may work sometimes. It does. It does, but I believe that you have to, when you're building a roster, you have to build it from the ground up. You have to start from the bottom. You have to get all the key players that you think are going to help you support your team. Don't go after the names, because Giancarlo Stanton, guess what? He hasn't done anything for the Yankees. He's been out.
By the way,
thank God we didn't get him.
Yeah, he has done nothing for the Yankees. I think the Yankees made a mistake on him, and now they can't get out of that contract. Look what the Yankees did with Alex Rodriguez back in the day. They could not get out of his contract. A-Rod was doing absolutely nothing. They were just eating that money, and they let him sit on the bench. You can't have that. You have to have players that you know that are going to benefit from your team, that are going to help you succeed right there and then. I think Aaron Judge definitely will probably get paid. To be honest with you, Gary Sanchez, another one. I don't think the Yankees are going to repay him. I think the Yankees are going to move away from him. I think Gary Sanchez has not – I don't think he has produced as much as Yankee fans wanted him to produce. So I think it's really – backfire on the Yankees. I think the past 3 years, a lot has backfired on the Yankees.
Well, you're saying backfired on the Yankees. I want to know your opinion on this. With the DJ LeMahieu situation, how are you going to feel if the Mets jump in on that? Which, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be a cocky Met fan, because I saw Joe smiling.
No, they're not. They're not.
But it's a serious question. You think he deserves the money?
For what the production, I think what they probably should do is give him probably one more year. If he accepts
he ain't going to sign for one more year.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, you know what? The Yankees are probably going to backfire. That's going to backfire on them because DJ LeMahieu was a good second baseman. He was an all-around player. He could play at any position the Yankees needed him for. That that's something that's going to hurt the Yankees. I think with Gleyber Torres moving around a little bit, they need a solid. Or Shaller's been playing well at third, so I think they need a solid second, and he could be that person. I think we'll Voit there at first, and I think the Yankees were in contact with Yadier Molina. I think so.
He's not old or anything. Don't worry about it.
He's a little older, so I think maybe even if they bring a veteran catcher in to teach Sanchez maybe some new things. That's what I say. It's all about coaching. It's how you get developed. It's how you want to get developed. I think there's a lot of people that like a lot of managers don't have patience for. What a
lot of managers are in on that analytics stuff. It's that
right.
That's the problem.
And look at Aaron Boone. I think Aaron Boone definitely had a big analytic base. I think in the playoffs, Aaron Boone, I'm not going to lie, it was all analytics with him. I think in the playoffs, especially Game 5, I mean,
with Garcia,
right? You bring in Chapman in the 7th inning to get what 6? That's not going to work. Aroldis Chapman barely got out of the World Series that 1 year with the Cubs. He had that game-tying home run in the 8th. So analytics, it's going to hurt, but I think that's what's going to hurt the Yankees a lot in the upcoming. If they stick with that analytic.
Is it weird? Is it weird that I'm sensing more optimism with the Knicks than the Yankees?
The Yankees scare me.
Okay.
The Yankees.
Hold on. You said the Yankees scare you. That's amazing because it's such a change of an idea, the concept from what we were used to when we were all growing up. Go ahead, explain yourself. Why did the Yankees change? Scare you?
Listen, I may be very delusional to all this, and Mike Estorita, I know
that's my introduction to you.
That's the word right there.
I know, Mike Estorita, I know you're listening, and you probably think I'm delusional here, but I get scared with the Yankees. I really do. I think they have an amazing season. Everyone's like, "Oh, the Yankees are going to the World Series." Yankees, no, because playoffs are a whole different ball game, man. One team gets hot, and you don't know what's coming. You don't know what's going to happen. And you look at even with football, like one team gets hot, they can run, they could go.
A hot goalie could carry a team.
Yeah.
You get hot in the playoffs.
It's a fair game, and that's what I think. I think the Yankees make me nervous when they make the postseason. I think everyone got hyped off. I think everyone had very high expectations with the Yankees after they made the ALCS after 2017. Everyone wanted that World Series the next year. They lost to the Red Sox. 2020, or 2019 when they went to the ALCS again, everyone was expecting a World Series.
Well, you listen to the radio, and all they talk about is like, "Oh, Yankees! If it's the World Series, if they don't make the World Series, it's a bust." Like that's not how it's going to work, man. That's not how it works.
That is the Yankee way. It's either World Series or bust, and that's not going to change. That's been the Yankee way since they were created. So the sooner you guys realize that, the better you feel. But I want to ask you about this though. Is there a moment where a team, is there a moment that a team has when it kind of changes your outlook of the direction of where you think the franchise is heading? So, for example, the Giants this year, when they started off, 1-5?
0-5.
0-5?
0-5.
Yeah?
0-5, yeah.
Okay, so they started off at that time now. Was there a moment in this season that you said, okay, this could actually change? Now I'm actually a believer. I think that this team can beat the Cardinals come Sunday. I think this team can beat and run the table for the rest of the time.
Yeah, I think with the Giants, they make me nervous too. I think all my teams make me nervous because they all make me nervous. I think with the Giants this year, I think looking in, you just never knew what was going to happen. You looked at last year, okay, they went 4-12. You're like, all right, it's another wash year. Like, okay, maybe they missed out on the draft, but we don't know what Andrew Thomas. He maybe had 3 bad games, and everyone's like, oh, he stinks. The guy is a rookie. You have to develop him, and if you develop him in the correct way, you could probably develop a good tackle. And I think that's what the Giants are trying to do with Andrew Thomas. I think I think the spark came, I really believe, after the Philadelphia game. When Evan Ingram dropped that football, I knew that was going to change their season because they were most likely going to lose that game. And then they started to go on that little winning streak. And then they go into – that was the turning point. That game was a huge turning point on their season because they knew they had that game. They probably could have swept Philadelphia this year. They didn't. And look, it happened. It's over with. Look where the Giants are and look where Philadelphia is. Philadelphia was leading the division. Everyone was hyped up for Philly. Everyone was picking Philadelphia to win the division. Now, roles are changed. I think really that game changed the Giants' season because I think they're playing with more fire in their stomach. I think they really want this division. I think the division has, down like it collapsed. I think with Dallas, Philadelphia, and Washington's really developed. And I think the division's everyone's making fun of the NFC East, but at the end of the day, I think this division's gonna turn around in a year or two.
It's getting better.
It's going to get better. And now who thought Washington was going to be involved? Who thought the Giants are going to be involved?
Keep going. You're good.
With Philadelphia and Dallas, everyone was like, those are the main powerhouses in the NFC East. Those teams stink. You know what, Philadelphia? I think Philadelphia has broken Carson Wentz. I really do. I think with them starting Jalen Hurts, you just gave up on Carson Wentz at this point. And maybe it's for the right reason because Philadelphia hasn't had the greatest season. Dallas defense just stinks. You question the decisions in those organizations, but lucky enough, I'm not a fan of those teams, so I don't have to worry about that. But right now, for the Giants, I think the biggest spark just came through. I think that loss in Philadelphia really changed their season.
Now, are you scared of Washington since you brought them up, or did the Giants win the division?
I'm a little nervous with Washington, especially because they went into Pittsburgh and they did beat Pittsburgh.
And I think that was for real.
And look, I'm not going to deny that. Even when we played them, it was tough. Those games came down to the wire. Giants edged it out, maybe, but and maybe Washington beats the Giants that first matchup. If Ron Rivera didn't go for two, Washington might have won. They might have won that game. That game probably would have went to overtime. The Giants weren't doing anything towards the end of the game, and they got lucky. The Giants. I'm not going to deny that. So I am scared for Washington a little bit. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun down the wire. But I do think the Giants edged the division. I think because they did sweep the Washington football team, I think they do edge out the division.
Okay, so before we wrap things up, because we are running out of time here, Nick.
Yep.
The teams that you root for, the Knicks, the Giants, the Yankees, and the Rangers, which one would you say you're most optimistic about? Let's say if it's a pick'em game in the gambling world, pick'em game, what team would you be most optimistic about to put your money on right now?
The Giants.
Giants. Okay.
I would pick the Giants because how they're playing right now. You see a different fight at that team from where they were in the beginning. I think Joe Judge has done an excellent job with this team. You never know with these hires because you don't know who these people are. But maybe this Belichick coach worked. Maybe because he has seen a lot from Nick Saban. He saw everything from Belichick. It's good to have that special teams coach where you're gonna get that. So I think the Giants. I'm very optimistic about them. They have a big game this weekend. I think, it's going to be a dogfight, but I think they probably might edge it out a little bit. But you never know with these teams. The Giants make me nervous, but if I had to put money down, I would definitely take the Giants. All
right, Nick. I did have to finish off with one question. How was your fantasy team this year?
What a joke.
Terrible. What a joke, man. I went into the – I don't even want to say it, man. It was brutal.
You have to say, you're on the spot.
2 wins, man. 2 wins.
Listen, I had one of my teams that had 2 wins, but that was because I had most points against. I was unlucky this year.
I think one of I was in 2 leagues. One of them went, I think it had 5 wins, and the other had like 3.
All right, so terrible at fantasy. So why should I trust any of your betting advice?
I don't know, man. God, trust the system. Trust the process.
Yeah, trust the system. Get this clown out of here.
A saying that never worked before. Trust the process.
Yeah, no, we went through that last week. Trust the process is not a good term. Oh, last thing. This is extra credit now. I know you're not a Met fan, and you hate talking about new uniforms and everything like that. There was a poll today that the Mets said about bringing back the black uniforms.
Ooh.
Would you bring this back?
Yeah.
I think those
And
uniforms
players do, by the way.
I think that's a nice. I think that's a. I can't see the player because I only can see Chris's face.
David
right
Wright.
now, but who's the player?
David Wright.
Yeah, I would bring him in maybe for a front office.
No, he's talking about the jersey.
I'm talking about the uniform.
Oh, you said bring the player back. Sorry.
It's a joke. It's a
Oh,
joke.
yes,
man.
bring those jerseys
Over the
back.
head.
Oh, bring those jerseys back. All right.
Listen, I'm a huge fan for black uniforms. I love them. That's why when the Jets said that they were going to bring black into uniform, I was a sucker for it. I think the Mets should definitely bring back their black uniform. I think all teams should have some sort of black. It's fierce. It's really, really a deep color that get the fans pumped up. There's nothing that will – when the Jets are good again, there's nothing that'll be better than on a Monday night football game at MetLife Stadium in front of a packed house, Jets going out for a blackout, everybody wearing black. And
It lose like 50 to the Patriots.
Well, that's also going to happen next. But, Nick, thanks, man. We can't thank you enough for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Telling your story.
Thank you, man.
On sports. I think that was mostly about this podcast today, talking about that. But we had some good conversations. I thought we covered a lot of ground here and a bunch of different topics. Nick, you're always welcome to join us. Make sure you remember that, okay?
Yeah, well, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Instead, he just keeps annoying me about coming on. So.
Yeah. Oh, and Nick, do me a favor. Stay away from the betting lines, okay?
Yeah, we'll do. I stink at that. I gotta chill with that.
Save your money. Invest it. Go. Airbnb just went public. Not public, but like they just had a big week this week in stocks. Invest in Airbnb.
Will do. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks
Chris.
again,
Thanks
Nick.
for having me.
All right, Nick.
You.
For Joe Barone,
Chris Burrow.
this is another edition of the Beeline Podcast saying good night. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, hopefully the Jets win this week, fellas.